Let me tell you about two people. Same country, same work ethic, same belief that if you just put in the hours, good things would follow. Person one is your grandfather. He dropped out of high school, got a factory job at 18, worked the same company for 35 years, bought a house on a single income, raised 3 kids, and retired with a pension that paid him until the day he died. He never read a finance book, he never owned a stock, he just showed up every day for decades. And it was enough. Person two is someone you probably know. Maybe it's you. They went to college, took on $47,000 in student debt, got the degree, got the entry-level job, got promoted twice. They work 50 hours a week. They do everything right. They cannot afford to buy a home. They have less than $10,000 saved. They are one medical emergency away from serious financial damage. Beat. Same country, same work ethic, completely different outcome. And nobody in our education system, our government, or our financial media has given a straight, honest answer as to why. Until now. Because the economy didn't slow down, it didn't get harder for everyone. It quietly changed the rules, and it only told certain people. Today, we're going to find out what those rules are, and more importantly, who actually wins under them. There is a phrase that every American child grows up hearing: work hard, play by the rules, and you'll be rewarded. It was printed into our identity before we were old enough to question it. It was modeled by our parents, reinforced by our schools, and endorsed by every motivational poster stapled to every classroom wall in America. And for a long stretch of American history, it was genuinely, measurably true. But somewhere between the 1970s and right now, something fundamental shifted. Not loudly, not with an announcement, just quietly, the way the tide goes out before you realize the water is gone. And today, in 2025, the United States has a productivity rate that is near all-time highs. Americans are working harder, producing more, and generating more economic output than at almost any point in history. And yet, real wages, adjusted for inflation, have barely moved in 50 years for the bottom 60% of earners. Pause. We got more productive, the economy got wealthier, and somehow most workers are still waiting for their share. That is not a coincidence, and it is not your fault. But understanding why it happened and what it means for your financial future might be the most important thing you do this year. So let's go, step by step. No jargon, just truth. Here's what the old economy looked like, and I want you to really picture this. After World War II, America built the greatest middle class in human history. Companies were booming. Unions were powerful, and there was a social contract between employers and workers that basically said, you give us your time and loyalty, we give you a stable job, a living wage, health care, and a retirement. That contract meant that hard work, physical, repetitive, unglamorous hard work, was a reliable path to a stable life. You didn't need to be an entrepreneur. You didn't need to invest in the stock market. You didn't need a personal brand. You just needed to show up and not quit. Then, starting around the 1980s, that contract began to quietly dissolve. Globalization meant companies could move factories overseas and pay workers in other countries a fraction of American wages. Technology began replacing entire job categories. Unions lost power. Corporate loyalty to long-term employees was replaced by a new priority: quarterly profits. The deal didn't get renegotiated, it just got canceled. And most workers didn't find out until they were already deep inside a system that no longer rewarded what they'd been told to do. Your grandfather's playbook didn't fail you. The era it was written for just ended. So, if the economy is producing more wealth than ever, where is it going? Let's follow the money and be prepared because this part is uncomfortable. Between 1979 and 2023, worker productivity in the United States increased by over 60%. That means the average American worker is producing dramatically more per hour than their parents did. But here's what happened to wages during that same period. For the bottom 70% of earners, the people doing most of that work, hourly compensation, adjusted for inflation, grew by just around 11%. Read that again. Productivity up 60%, wages up 11%. That gap, that massive growing distance between what workers produce and what workers earn, had to go somewhere. It went to the top. The wealthiest 1% of Americans now own more wealth than the entire bottom 90% combined, and the gap between them has widened every single decade since the 1980s. This isn't class warfare, this is arithmetic. Hard work stopped creating value, it just stopped capturing. Here's what the new economy actually rewards, and it's almost the exact opposite of what we were taught. The new economy rewards ownership over labor. It rewards people who own assets, businesses, stocks, real estate, intellectual property over people who sell their time. Here's why. When you work a job, you earn income. Income is taxed immediately, often at 22 to 35%. But when you own a stock that grows in value, you don't pay taxes until you sell it. And when you do sell it, that gain is taxed at capital gains rates, often just 15%, sometimes even lower. A person earning $200,000 from a salary pays a higher tax rate than someone earning $200,000 from investments. The tax code, written largely by lawmakers who receive significant funding from investment and financial industries, is structured to protect and grow the wealth of people who already own assets, while taxing the people who work for wages at higher rates. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's literally published in the IRS tax tables. Anyone can look it up. The system was designed for a winner. It just wasn't designed for the winner to be you. Now, here's the part most financial channels won't say out loud. A lot of the traditional advice, the advice your parents gave you, your teachers gave you, that career counselors gave you, isn't just outdated. For some people, it is actively harmful. Get a stable job with benefits. Benefits are worth less every year as healthcare costs explode and pension plans disappear. A stable job now often means voluntarily handing over your most productive hours in exchange for income that inflation slowly erodes. Save your money in the bank. With inflation running at 4 to 5% and most savings accounts paying under 1%, saving in cash is a slow-motion wealth reduction strategy. Every year your money sits still, it gets quietly smaller in real terms. Buy a home as soon as you can. Home prices in most American metros have detached from income levels so severely that first-time buyers today must save for 10 to 15 years just for a down payment, in a market where prices keep rising faster than they can save. For millions, the window has closed. None of the people who gave you this advice were lying. They were just giving you instructions for a game that has fundamentally changed. You're trying to win a 2025 race with a 1975 map. Let's pull back the curtain on something that rarely gets named directly. The modern economy has a hidden feature that almost nobody talks about in plain English. It is structurally biased toward compounding. Here's what that means. When you have money, whether it's in the stock market, in real estate, or in a business, that money generates more money while you sleep. Compound growth means that wealth, over time, multiplies itself exponentially. You don't have to work for it. You just have to already have it. But when you don't have capital, when all you have is your time, your income is fundamentally linear. You work an hour, you get paid for an hour. You stop working, the income stops. This is why the wealth gap widens every decade, even when the economy is doing well. The people who own assets are on an escalator going up. The people selling time are on a flat floor, walking as fast as they can. And here's what makes it worse. Financial services companies, brokerages, banks, credit card issuers generate enormous profits specifically from people who are in survival mode. Overdraft fees, high-interest debt, predatory loan structures. The system extracts from those without capital and compounds for those who have it, simultaneously, using the same dollar. Meet two cousins, both 35, both grew up in the same Columbus, Ohio neighborhood. Cousin 1, Derek. Derek went straight to work after high school, warehousing, then logistics management, works 52 hours a week, earns $67,000, has $6,400 in savings, rents an apartment, no investments. Proud of his work ethic, exhausted. Cousin 2, Simone. Simone took a different path, not easier, just different. She started a small e-commerce side business at 26, reinvested every dollar back into it for 3 years, also works hard, often harder than Derek. But her business generates revenue whether she's clocked in or not. At 35, it earns her $94,000 a year passively. She owns 2 rental properties, net worth $340,000. Did Simone work harder than Derek? Not necessarily. But she built something that earns without her presence. She put her energy toward assets, not hours. Derek did everything he was told. Simone changed the question. The difference between them isn't talent, it isn't luck, it isn't even effort. It's the understanding that the new economy rewards what you build, not just what you do. 3 numbers that make this undeniable. Fact number 1. Since 1978, CEO compensation in America has grown by over 1,460%. Worker compensation, 18%. Same economy, same time period. Wildly different outcomes because CEOs are compensated primarily in stock ownership, not wages. Fact number 2. The Federal Reserve reports that the top 1% of Americans owns 38% of all stock market wealth. The bottom 50% owns less than 1%. When the stock market has a great year, the celebration is not evenly distributed. Fact number 3. Americans now work an average of 258 more hours per year than workers in the United Kingdom and over 400 more hours than workers in Germany. More hours, less vacation, and still the savings rates, home ownership rates, and retirement security of American workers lag behind most developed nations. We are not working less, we are working more for a system that returns less of it to us. So let's land this. Hard work didn't become worthless, but in the modern American economy, it stopped being sufficient on its own. The old deal, where showing up, being loyal, and working your hours guaranteed stability, was real, and then it was quietly dismantled, replaced by a system that rewards capital over labor, ownership over presence, and compounding over effort. This is not a reason to stop working hard. It's a reason to start working on the right things. Here are 3 moves that actually align with how the new economy works. Move 1. Start buying assets before you think you're ready. Even $50 a month into a low-cost index fund puts you on the compounding side of the equation. You don't need to be wealthy to start investing. You need to start investing to become wealthy. The earliest dollar you invest is worth more than any dollar you invest later. Move 2. Build at least one income stream that doesn't require your presence. A digital product, a rental income, dividends from stocks, a small business. It doesn't have to be big, it has to be something that earns while you rest. That is the fundamental shift from trading time to building wealth. Move 3. Reframe what working hard means. In your grandfather's era, hard work meant physical output and loyalty. Today, it means working hard on understanding systems, building skills that compound, and making decisions that put time on your side, not against you. The people who are going to look back on this decade with financial confidence aren't the ones who worked the most hours. They're the ones who understood what this economy actually rewards and quietly repositioned themselves around it. You now have that understanding. What you do with it is the only thing left. But here's what I haven't told you yet. The shift we talked about today, from labor to ownership, from wages to assets, that shift is about to accelerate in a way that most Americans are completely unprepared for because of something happening right now in the economy. Something to do with automation, artificial intelligence, and a new category of worker that's emerging in real time. In the next decade, two groups of Americans are going to have completely different financial realities, and the divide won't be based on education, zip code, or how hard they work. It'll be based on one decision most people haven't made yet. We're covering that in the next video. Subscribe so you don't miss it, because that one might be the most important thing we've ever published. If this video put words to something you've been feeling for years, share it. Someone you know is working themselves into the ground and doesn't understand why it isn't working the way it's supposed to. Like the video if this changed how you see anything, and drop your answer in the comments. What did you grow up believing about hard work and money, and has life confirmed it or challenged it? I read every comment, and I genuinely want to know.